Hey y'all, MC here. So excited for this webinar. We have probably some of the coolest women I have ever met in the last couple years recently. We teamed up at APTA. It was an amazing format. They came to the booth and they just kind of like disrupted everything with some of the stuff they're working with. And since then, we've been following with them. We've been collaborating with them on different things because they're really pioneers in the industry that they're working with. And it's such an exciting thing. So I'm so excited to bring you the NeuroCollaborative team that we met. And ladies, first off, thank you so much for being on our quarterly webinar here at BlazePod. So excited to have you.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here.
Yes,
So
thank you. Very excited.
Let's jump into some introductions. Let's just jump right into this thing. So I met Erin and Danielle at the APTA conference. And so Erin, I guess just give us a little background into you, not really about NeuroCollaborative, but about who you are. And really, I guess this is going to go for all of you. Like, how did you get into being a physical therapist or get into the industry that you're in?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Erin Gallardo, and I'm a neuro PT for about 17 years now. I'm originally from Ohio, and that's where I did my schooling and everything. I have always been an athlete my whole life. And so I think PT kind of fell into my sphere because I really always enjoyed movement and the body and science and problem solving. And so when I learned about PT, it seemed to incorporate all of the things that I was most excited about and loved to learn into one profession. So I knew that was the one that I wanted to go with. And it wasn't until I got into school that I really fell in love with neuro and decided I wanted to go on that route of working with people with neurologic conditions, because there's just so much more complexity and nuance and just a special way of working with people. So that's kind of how I got into this.
Was there a specific sport? You say you were an athlete and you're all super fit, which is awesome. What athletic did you do, or what sport were you participating in?
I've always been a big runner, so I love running. I used to do cross country and track, and then I also played basketball. So those were kind of my big sports, but I still run a lot. I still do a lot of marathons and ultra marathons and do enjoy a great long run personally.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, how about you, Danielle?
Right. So I was a neuro nerd before I ever went to PT school. I initially, once upon a time, was a biomedical engineer, and I did research in neuroscience. I married somebody in the Air Force, and that's not a portable career. So I went to PT school and always enjoyed the neuro content and gravitated towards that. Finally got to live somewhere where I could be a full out neuro PT. So that's what I do and love. And then I was able to connect with Erin and Claire and become part of the NeuroCollaborative team, which, our mission of knowledge translation and helping clinicians be the best they can with their patients for best outcomes is my favorite part of the job. Just learning new things and sharing new things and, just being neuro nerds together. So it's a good balance between being in the clinic and then working with NeuroCollaborative just energizes me for what we do.
You know what? If NeuroCollaborative doesn't coin the term neuro nerd, BlazePod is going to. So, all right, Claire, what about you?
My name is Claire McLean. Erin and my story is kind of similar. I'm from Michigan, so we're both from the Midwest. I moved out to California to go to physical therapy school at USC. So I moved out a little bit earlier, and I did have neuro on my radar going into PT school. I also played sports. I grew up riding horses and I played soccer, and I never myself needed physical therapy, luckily, but a lot of my friends did. I had a lot of friends who had ACL tears playing soccer. So I knew a lot of people who had been in physical therapy. And I gravitated towards healthcare, but didn't really want to go to all of the schooling that was required for medical school. And, physical therapy, just being active and kind of that aspect of healthcare was very intriguing to me. So I, built up hours during undergrad. And then one of our neighbors where I was living had an aneurysm when I was in college, and my mom worked with her. And so I learned about neuroplasticity this term, of how the brain can change in response to what it's exposed to as she recovered over time. So going into PT school, neuro was on my radar, but I definitely was more familiar with kind of the orthopedic side of physical therapy. But when I was in PT school, immediately I had much more interest in neuro and really helping people improve their function and recover from a stroke, or, you know, change the outcomes while living with Parkinson's. So pretty early in PT school, I really was interested in working with people with neurologic conditions and became a neuro nerd to the full degree then. Then after graduating PT school, I did a year-long residency program to specialize in neurologic physical therapy. And that's when Erin and I met. So we had both just graduated from PT school. So we've been friends all this time. And we worked in different places in different settings, but lived close together and always had a lot in common, and just had lots of conversations while on runs together about how to improve our practice and collaborate with other people, and things just evolved to where we are now. And I just can't believe it's been 17 years. It goes by really fast.
Wow. So our listeners, the people who take in our information, these webinars, whether it's live or post on our Academy page, they're everyone from researchers, scientists, physical therapists, ACTs, chiros, all the way down to, well, I don't say down, but, you know, to physical therapists, performance specialists, performance coaches, coaches in general, skills coaches, Olympic level down to amateur level. So when you guys talk about, let's ask Danielle, since she first off said the word neuro nerd. What is meant when you talk about neuro or neurological therapy? What is in your field? What is that in reference to?
I think, well, where I work in a clinic, it's the Neuro Rehab and Balance Center. So it's really any way your nervous system can affect your movement is something we can work on. It can be something like neuropathy or Parkinson's, a degenerative condition. It can be MS. It can be a stroke. It can be just normal aging where somebody becomes unsteady. They don't necessarily have to have a neurological diagnosis. Vestibular issues, concussions, traumatic brain injuries, brain tumors. You know, there's just so many ways a disease process or an injury, a spinal cord injury, for example, you know, can affect your mobility and your quality of life. And as a neurophysical therapist, and also, you know, our speech therapists and occupational therapist counterparts, you know, we can all work together as a team to restore that function and, you know, quality of life and return to activities. And, you know, like Claire mentioned, take advantage of that neuroplasticity to make a real difference for somebody.
I love it. And it's kind of it's kind of a nouveau science, right? Like it was theorized a long time ago, but I mean, I'm an older adult, and hearing that after the age of 35, you get dumber. Like we thought we couldn't do anything, that we couldn't mold the plasticity of our brain. And it's only been within the last 10 years that we've been able to really figure out that we can at this older age. And I think there's been practitioners who've known about it, but the science just hasn't been there until recently. Because don't you think, Erin, that you've seen like a much larger push in the neuro space in the last couple years as opposed to maybe previous to 10 years?
Yeah, I've seen more push, but I will say that we have spoken to some really prominent researchers in our field, like Carolee Winstein, and she said this stuff was around even 30 years ago, but people just weren't as knowledgeable about it, how to apply it, how to use it in practice, what it really meant. But they were learning that there was neuroplasticity and that the brain-body connection was critical, regardless of what kind of injury or movement you want to be doing. You need to know how to work with your brain and motivation and the other aspects of like connection in your nervous system. So it has been around for a really long time, but it has developed maybe slowly or just gotten less, you know, it's just taken a while for people to start to really apply it as broadly as we have as neurotherapists. And then now I feel like even people in the fitness space and the orthopedic space are paying more attention to what it means to actually work on your brain and have that improve your motor skills and your outcomes that you want to reach, even athletically.
I think the technology and the assessment capability we have now, we're now able to take those snapshots. I mean, I've seen, neuronal charts of like before, intermediate, after, and you can see this integration of this neural web in picture form, which we obviously didn't have, 15 years ago. So maybe that's the proof point where in which before we were messing around with this, certain experts, like you mentioned, but it was kind of like, we think it works, or anecdotally it works because they're having these better outcomes, but we just didn't maybe have that snapshot of those proof points of it.
Yeah. I think Claire, what do you want to say about it? Because I feel like you probably have things down.
I was just going to say that, yeah, like in terms of physical therapy, working with people with neurologic conditions, I went to this conference last year, and that term, like neuro-rehab, did not exist like 50 years ago. So Carolee Winstein, who we talked to, she really is one of the people who brought it into existence throughout her career from when she first started working with people in physical therapy. And so that term did not exist. And so it was about 50 years ago that it started to be researched. But when you look at the number of studies published per year, I mean, it has just been exponential in terms of the growth. And so the research has been happening, but also what's understood about research is that it takes on average 17 years from when something is published to actually become like standard of practice. So that's where I think we're seeing so much difference, and technology definitely helps us be able to assess and engage these types of things. But it is also just that there is this process of research happening, and then it kind of takes a long time to actually make it to people in the real world. And that's one of our goals at NeuroCollaborative, is to facilitate faster transition or translation from what is learned in research into the real world, so that patients can benefit from the research faster than they have historically.
Yeah, appreciate that. So then through all of that is born the mastermind, or this brainchild that is NeuroCollaborative. I believe, Erin, you're the kind of founder of NeuroCollaborative. Can you kind of give us a little information on why you, I guess we know why you created it, but what it does? What is the NeuroCollaborative?
Claire and I are both the founders of NeuroCollaborative, and the way it came about was we were both kind of early in practice of like owning clinics, and had a small group of other neuro clinic owners in LA that we were networking with and learning from. And neuro practices are just inherently different than orthopedic practices. You can't run them the same. We don't see people the same way. The profitability can be different. It can be more challenging in different ways. And so we really felt like there'd be a huge benefit to us talking with more people who either have clinics or want to start clinics or want to run programs, so we can learn from each other and how to make this bigger, because communities need access to experts. They need access to people who know how to work with them and their conditions, and not just have people with neurologic conditions go to just any random therapist or practice. So we knew there was like a huge need for us to have more programs out there, and for people who want to have practices to learn from each other. So like, what are you doing? How are you managing Medicare, or managing these cases, or making it work for you and your community? And so originally there were 4 of us who were like, let's create something together, and we'll call it NeuroCollaborative, and we'll do some things together to help people. And then Claire and I just got kind of more serious about it. We're like, we really want to make this a thing and not just like a hobby. So we incorporated in 2018. And our whole mission initially was to start working with those people who wanted to create programs for their community, neuro stuff, or clinics, or were running clinics, and we would have expert speakers, and we would coach each other and mentor each other and learn to grow that way. And then it evolved because so many people in the neuro world just wanted continuing education and wanted to learn more skills and knowledge and like about the research and applying it. So we decided to then expand into where we are now offering mentorship and continuing education on clinical things. And that's really our biggest branch of NeuroCollaborative. Our biggest program is NeuroSpark, which offers that side of things. And then we also still do coaching for people who have businesses or want to create businesses, because that's a huge passion of ours. And part of the mission of helping transform healthcare is to make sure that there are programs in every state, in every community, where people who need those services and those experts, they can find them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I know we had talked about it before, but you were introduced to BlazePod through Claire. Claire was using them in her clinic. Claire, how did you find BlazePod? And why would you introduce BlazePod to these women?
I mean, it's been so long now. I don't even know for sure, but it had to be the internet. Like it had to be Facebook or Instagram probably for me to first see them. I have been posting, I've been pretty active on social media with Rogue from a time before a lot of people were posting maybe as much like neuro content or people with neurologic diagnoses exercising. I started Rogue 9 years ago. And so right around that time, I was taking videos of my members and clients that I was working with exercising and showing like, here's what Parkinson's can look like. There's kind of this idea of what Parkinson's is, an older man who's hunched over and shuffling and moving slow. And what Parkinson's is so much more than that. There's a big age range, men and women, and a lot of people now are exercising. So I started just being on social media a lot, posting videos of our members exercising, kind of blowing people's minds by showing them what people with Parkinson's were doing for exercise. And so I was active on social media and I got a lot of ideas for what I did in terms of exercise from social media as well, like lots of sports videos. I'd see that and say like, how am I going to modify that a little bit to be a great workout for my member, but just to get more ideas. So I am sure that's where at some point I saw BlazePods and was like, that looks really cool. So I ordered them. I'm one of the, an early adopter. I got the Gen 1, like, I think it was, there maybe was like a pre-sale and I ordered before they existed and then got one of the first shipments and started using them. And people loved using them. It made exercise so much more fun and motivating and people were moving faster and we were able to, just that motivation piece is really huge for everyone, and especially people with neurologic diagnoses. And there's a lot of research that kind of like gamifying things is a good way to help people exercise better. And so, yeah, we got them. People loved them. And it's been however many years since BlazePods were first being sold. I've had them since the beginning. So I don't know how many years that's been. But we started using them. It was so much fun. We were posting lots of videos, spreading the word. In terms of equipment, they are an investment, but relative to a lot of therapy equipment, they are a good deal. They are so worth the value and worth the investment for what you can do with them. There's so many different things you can do in so many different ways. And so I have been, sharing before, we ever met or I connected with anyone at BlazePod. I've been sharing on social media. Here's what we're using. Here's how we're exercising. Here's how we make it, more cognitive. Here's how we work on more speed. Here's how we get into all different positions. It's not just for standing and hitting them. We're down on all fours. We're on our stomach. We're on our back. We're in sitting. We're really working on functional things, which is what is so important for people with neurologic conditions. We're really trying to help them function better in their daily life, but we can use BlazePods to facilitate that. So Erin's been hearing me talk about them for a long time. And then, yeah, I think it was probably like at a CSM, maybe was like the first time we got a chance to really connect. But yeah, we have like 4 sets here now.
You had people reaching out. You had people reaching out all the time, asking questions about them to you. And so then we decided we need to record a podcast and explain what you're doing with it. So talk about how people were contacting you as the expert.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for the reminder. So yeah, we post a lot of videos on Facebook and Instagram, and I started getting messages from people. First question was often just, what are those lights that are lighting up? And, I was like, I feel like I tagged BlazePod or like said that they were BlazePods, but I'd answer that question. So first was just people are like, what are these things? And then we have them up on the wall and people are like, how do you have them up on the wall? And I'm like, we use Velcro and, with their holders. And then people were starting to ask like, what are the programs that you use? And this is something where we actually don't use super complex programs here for a lot of the games we do. Danielle has done such an awesome job of putting together so many different, programs to use, and BlazePod within the app, there are so many different ways you can do it. But one thing that I think is important for therapists is not to be intimidated by that, because a lot of people don't adopt the use of equipment because they feel like, I don't have 30 minutes to like set up and play around with this before I work with my patient. And so I want to make sure that, any therapists that are watching know that there are a lot of simple games and programs and exercises you can do. You don't have to spend a lot of time setting things up beforehand. simple versions really work great. But then also for anyone who has time or interest, there are infinite possibilities for what programs you set up and how you use them. But I know, like, I hear about cool things sometimes, and then when I actually talk to someone and find out, like, I'm going to have to spend an hour, you know, ahead of the time that I'm working with a patient to get this figured out and set up, like, that's not reasonable in a schedule for physical therapists. Like, it is back to back to back, you know, seeing patients throughout the day. So yeah, so people were emailing me about the programs, and I was kind of answering, but telling Erin about it. And then, yeah, then basically it turned into Danielle developing all these awesome programs and games, and NeuroCollaborative taking the lead on organizing that. Since NeuroCollaborative really does the mentoring and continuing education, it really was kind of a natural shift for NeuroCollaborative to take that over. Rogue, we're here doing it with people in person, and we get a lot of experience that we can share. But NeuroCollaborative really putting this program together for therapists is what made a lot of sense.
Claire, I just followed you guys on Instagram. So I'm a follower, and I'm excited. And one of the things you mentioned, I want to get into some of the work that Danielle has done, because you guys have this landing page that I think is just so incredible, so easy. It's fun. You guys have made it fun. And I'm a PT school dropout, and I interned at 4 physical therapy clinics. I can't believe will be 20 years next year that I went to PT school. And it was not my personality. I am someone who wants to burst through this screen. I have a lot of energy. And back in that day, the clinics were so, even at my university that I went to, we had one of the very first like clinics for individuals with disabilities. And I loved it. I loved working with that population, but all the equipment was antiquated, and it was so drab, and the Navajo white, or whatever that off-white's called, and everything was just, there's no money. And I hated going to work as a master's student every day in there. It killed me, but I loved the people and I loved the work. And then when I went to actually volunteer at some other clinics for an internship, it was the same thing. I'm like, I cannot continue with this, because I'm going to hurt somebody. You just gave me a tour of Rogue. There's painted walls and things are colored, and that is not how things were 20 years ago. And I think BlazePod in part has been transforming physical therapy clinics and bringing them to a level where it was very maybe sterile or stagnant, because I think maybe that's what people expected in a medical facility. And now that it's more movement expressive and colors mean things, and not only are we working with the ortho, but the neuro and the mood, there's got to be this mood aspect to it, and motivation, and all those things kind of collaboratively integrated. What you said is people asking questions about the lights and being excited about those lights. That's what I've seen in clinics. When I go into like some of the clinics now, I'm like this is, you've made exercise fun. You've made therapy and going through something difficult very appealing and something they want to do. So yeah, awesome space. I know that BlazePod will beat me up if I don't move on to some of these videos that were created. So let's move right along there. So let's give a plug to your guys' landing page. It's neurocollaborative.com/BlazePod. And on there, it's like right at the top, and you'll see it on the webinar. Learn how to use BlazePod to increase challenge, boost results, and have fun. Free activities and inspiration below. Really fun, really easy to see. So I just kind of want to go through a couple videos, and maybe you can explain the reason you've created them. I'm just going to pick the ones that are visible. The way they're broken down. Danielle, do you want to just talk through your activity collections? I don't know if you have that up. I have it up in front of me. Your upper extremity reaching and then stepping. Kind of explain why you programmed them the way you did.
Sure. So I'm pulling it up too. So I really tried to organize them kind of by position, or kind of the similarity in the activity, just so they're organized in a certain way. So if you're thinking you want to have somebody on their feet, or you want somebody on the floor, or so you can start there, and not just have to sit through an endless list and say, what's this, what's that, just to make it easy to navigate, because we were just talking about how we're so busy in the clinic that it's hard to take all that extra time to plan. So I started off just simple with the reaching, just to get familiar with the different light logics with the inhibition, distraction, or just simple dual task. Just with our population, you could go really any of those routes. And I find that when I first get BlazePod out with the patient, I'll start with simple dual task and see how they do and think, okay, well, let's try inhibition, and just kind of ask them for feedback. How did you think that went? And try a few different activities and see which one they like best, which was the most challenging. And then, I can try to increase difficulty. And what's really fun is I have more fun when I use them with patients too than I would if we were doing a different activity, or if I just threw agility dots out on the floor, or, set stuff up. I watch how they respond to it, what's challenging, and then I might go grab a tidal tank, or I might go grab a hurdle, or what, you're really steady. I'm going to set these up on foam now, so I just have fun at the same time. But anyways, back to the activities in the app. I just did organize them by position, and then, we're thinking of our OT counterparts too. So there may be some activities that OTs might be more interested in than PTs. And then, so we've got ones where you're stepping, really working on changing direction, picking up your feet, which is a very common thing, like with Parkinson's or many neurological diagnoses. You see a lot of shuffling, decreased foot clearance, difficulty turning, changing directions, and those can all increase fall risk. So you definitely want to include that. And then, we've got
what's
some
the
ones
biggest
where
difference between a physical therapist and an occupational therapist?
Oh, well, depending on what setting you're in, if you're in the hospital or rehab, some people say, you cut the body in half and OT gets the upper half and PT gets the bottom half. And that's really not the case. There is some overlap in what PTs and OTs do. In the neuro world, I say the PT works, we work on strength, we work on walking and balance, and kind of the big pieces on working on the movement. And then OT, applies that to daily function. Does Erin or Claire want to chime in on how that all works together? I don't want to not say anything good about my OT counterparts that I need to,
Yeah. I feel like the way I explain it to people is basically that, like, physical and occupational therapists, I mean, when it comes to neuro, we are working very closely together. I would say there's a lot of overlap, and sometimes a patient might not totally realize the difference, because hopefully we are working on similar goals, but we just kind of have different toolboxes that we're working on to help people get there. And PT can work a little bit more often on strength and gross motor function and balance and things like that, mobility. And OT then does kind of like take that even more specifically into activities of dressing, bathing, cooking, cleaning, the activities throughout the day that people need to be able to do. So PTs also do that, but OTs kind of get into even more details, and OTs are really masters of helping support people with like different equipment and things like that to make life easier and better. So, I mean, I really feel like there's a lot of overlap when you have like a good team of PT and OT, but we do have somewhat different, obviously our training is different. We have different licenses, but when working with a neurologic population, there is a lot of overlap. So it's great when you can work together with people though, and you basically have hopefully, two great therapy brains helping that patient solve their problems and be able to be the most active and independent that they can be.
Awesome. Yeah. Because when I look at BlazePod, I know so many OTs that use it. I know so many PTs that use it. And a lot of times from my little brain, I'm like, they're kind of using it the same way. Then I thought an OT was just a traveling PT, because some of my older clients, when I worked as a personal trainer, they'd have their OTs in the house. And I was like, oh, physical therapists work from like a clinic, and OTs are the ones that like go to people's houses. So that's how my little brain looked at it. But that's a great explanation of what you guys do. And and I know the NeuroCollaborative supports not only physical therapists, but occupational therapists, and a lot of like pretty much anybody that is focused on the neurotherapy component, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Assistants as well, students, OTs, PTs, assistant, anyone who loves neuro rehab is invited to enjoy our content and be part of our community.
I love it. Okay, so you have this is kind of a PTOT drill here. Your sit to stand activity. You have a young lady in a chair. She's sitting down. She's seeing a light flash, and she has a weighted ball, and she's standing there. What is? Give us a kind of a layman can see lower body strength. What's kind of going on the neural side of that?
Force generation, weight shifting, reaching, there's balance, the sit to stand, we use that to look at functional strength, but it also, there's a balance piece to it. It's functional, just sit to stand. You need to be able to get up from multiple surfaces. Using the weighted ball, you're manipulating something, you're holding something. As people get older, have a neurological condition, they feel like their balance is worse if they're carrying something because they can't put an arm out or, furniture, walk or reach for something. So there's that from the physical therapy kind of aspect. And then by using the ball with reaching, you can be simulating for OT more the ADL, reaching up into the cupboard, reaching up into the closet, just functional movements, strengthening that upper body while doing whole body movements, which, that's not an ADL, an activity of daily living itself, but it kind of helps set the stage for being able to do things throughout the day that, would require those kind of movements and lifting.
Yeah.
And what I really like about Claire, I'm sorry, jump in.
That's okay. I was just going to say, when it comes to sit to stand, that is one of the most common deficits for people with neurologic dysfunction, is to be able to stand up and especially maybe without pushing up with their hands, or depending on the height of the surface. If it's lower, it's harder. If they're tall, or if it's a soft surface. So a lot of times in therapy, that's worked on just practicing standing up and sitting down from a chair. And that can be helpful. But just like with sports, you don't just practice exactly what you have to do. You practice a harder version. Football players run through tires is an example that I'll tell people, not because they have to run through tires in a game, but the tires, make them have to lift their feet up and work on their agility more. And so, doing sit to stand with the BlazePods gives them a target where they're going to step and turn, or they're going to move towards it, and adding the ball, add some extra weight. And hopefully we are kind of gamifying it, making it more like a sport, which is engaging people. And basically, if we want them just to be able to stand up from a chair easily, we need to do something significantly harder than that in training, because we actually don't just want to practice for the exact task they need to do. We need to practice something even harder so that hopefully when they're out at a restaurant at a normal chair, it is easy to stand up from. So that's where making these tasks fun, but also more complex, really helps people, that neuroplasticity, so that there's really good carryover into their daily life.
Yeah, there was a couple comments early on that people would say oh, this is an expensive whack-a-mole. And so I was telling George Davies about that. And George Davies is well, he's that's the healthy population that says that, and they're not using them right. He goes, take the people I work with on a regular basis. He's if I can have an adult whack-a-mole, he goes, force generation, cross-body power, scanning, finding the object. He goes, there are so many things that they're looking for that their brain is getting all the neurochemicals to set. And I was oh my gosh, yes, this does do all of that thing. And I think that's the one thing that maybe able-bodied or people who are really healthy forget about, is that this stuff to us is we don't look at it. It's oh, prone, supine, quadruped, you're sitting and standing. We don't get it. We don't get the fact that there are people that you guys work with on a regular basis, thousands and thousands of people who can't do this regularly. And you found a way with BlazePod on the walls, BlazePod on suction cups on a closet door, BlazePod on the pod bases on the floor in front of you. Some of the demos you guys did were just the rolling and reaching techniques that I think were just so profound. In fact, proprioceptively, there were things that you guys were doing that I'm oh, that's easy. And I was finding myself getting dizzy, moving my head. I was oh, where am I in space? So it is even good for, let's call it a healthy individual like myself. How these drills can be done utilizing analog pieces like dots or balls or something like that. I would love to hear what is the advantage of BlazePod maybe over a colored cone or a dot, as you might refer to. Eeny,
Want to take it,
meeny,
Claire?
miny. Claire, we'll start with Claire real quick. Let's start with Claire, and then we'll go Danielle and hear from Erin too.
I think it's the gamification. So I don't know like really what it is about something that lights up, but I mean, it's novel, it's different. You know, if you have agility dots out, they're all out and they look the same the whole time. BlazePods, one is lighting up at a time. That does get your attention. It gets you scanning visually, and it makes it more of a game. And that gamification, there is so much research that says, you know, if you can make, you know, activities more like a game, it's really engaging to people. So that's just like the level one. And then it's the fact that, you know, if you want people to be moving from different ones, if you had dots out, you're telling them move to blue, move to red, you know, that it just is not as engaging or as exciting as if you're surprised, like which one lights up. You're both kind of surprised. It's fun for both of you. As the therapist too, I mean, in some ways it makes your job a little easier instead of you having to call it out and say it and think while you're also trying to guard someone who has balance impairment. The BlazePods are doing it for you. So you can focus on helping that person be safe and really challenge themselves. And you don't have to be doing all the things at the same time and trying to create that energy and gamification. The BlazePods are doing it for you. So, I mean, there's a lot of layers to it, but yeah, it would be interesting to ask people the difference, because I never really have asked people. We see the difference when the BlazePods are out. It's fun, it's engaging. People are moving faster, they're moving bigger, they're getting to that target. They are having to use more force production to, you know, tap it and get that light to turn off if that's how we're using it. So it'd be interesting to hear what they have to say about how it's different. But for us, I feel like it makes the activity more challenging, more engaging, while I am not having to work as hard. And that is a win-win.
And I can say there's a lot more smiling during therapy sessions when patients are using them versus the agility dots. And, you know, we have one set where I work now, and I hope 2 more around the way. So there's more to go around. But sometimes, you know, I have a patient I know really likes them, and oh man, somebody else grabbed them. And it's just not as fun. And then I too, you know, I use an app that if I don't have them, it'll call out random numbers or colors. So I don't have to be the one to say red, green, because that does get boring. And then I even like, you know, I love doing a shuttle drill just to get people moving in different directions and different distances and changing directions. And I can blame the BlazePod for, oh, it's the farthest one away lit up again. You know, it's random. I didn't do it. You know, so we just have fun.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I had read somewhere it talked about for neural progression to be like an ideal state in the training process. They called it the cognitive motor training. It needed to be unpredictable. It needed to be novel. And then if you wanted to increase that even more, if the patient could take that, it had to be what they called hot. And to make the drill hot, it could be, hey, you only have 30 seconds to get as many as possible. Or Claire and Danielle, you guys are going to go head to head on this drill. And so now there's that sense of urgency in that state of duress and kind of a situation that you now need to manage all of that that's going on. And I was like, when I read that, I was like, that's exactly what BlazePod is doing. And you can make this as aggressive, as complex, or as simple as you need to. And you had said something really cool earlier in speaking with that kind of the upper extremity reach. I saw on that drill, she was just doing right hand red, left hand blue. And there's a really interesting way to create like an assessment piece out of it. It's like 6 pods or whatever. How many can you get? 60. Now right hand red, left hand blue. I only got 45. Now right hand red, left hand blue, clap for green. I only got 30. And those are kind of like baseline assessment tests that you can do to like you said, I like to give them kind of a difficult one to see where they are. And then I can either regress it or progress it from there.
Yeah, there's been times where I do a few colors and, you know, the dual tasking that's too much. And I go, just hit the light. Don't care which hand. Let's just get you moving, find the light. And then, you know, they might get the hang of it. I'm like, okay, let's try making some color rules again and see. But it's really nice. And you can make that decision on the spot. And, you know, you can make changes so easily in the app, but you don't even have to change it. You can just say, ignore the colors, just hit the light. You know, it's so easy to flow with the treatment.
Yeah. And there are things really that you cannot do with regular agility dots that you can do with BlazePods. Like one of the ways that we like to use them is we have rules for the color. So we'll have even just like 3 BlazePods. If it lights up green, you're going to jump. If it's red, you're going to squat. And if it's blue, you're going to, I don't know, stand on one leg. So that is, cognitively, which is super important for all of us. I mean, athletes do really well when they do cognitive training. There's lots of research from athletes to older adults to people with neurologic conditions. It's super critical for people with neurologic conditions when it comes to something like falls. We really want to be training cognition. And so to have a game like that where they're following rules, like that's not really something that you can do with just agility dots out in front of you. That is something that the BlazePods changing, lighting up to different colors really is not doable with something that's more analog. So there are some things that you kind of could do, and it's just not as much fun without BlazePods, but there's a lot of things that you really cannot do the same type of thing without that technology.
Yeah, I love that, because then you work their working memory, because you tell them once, right? Here is your rules once. And I've done this a lot of times. And of the 50 people that are out there, there's like 10 people that are like not getting it. Or actually, sorry, there's 10 people who are getting it, the rest aren't. And they're looking around to see who's got it. That's a really cool assessment piece to work with.
The other thing that I think comes to mind with this is just how BlazePod creates an increased arousal, because the person has to be super aware of what is going to happen next. They don't know. There's an unpredictability. So increasing that state of arousal as well as presence. And we know being in present moment is when we learn, is when we have the most fun, is when things can change and things can adapt. So having that is very different than having just like a static object sitting there that doesn't create that brain state where you can have that fun and higher state of arousal.
Yeah, I'm adding that to my list, because those are two things I didn't think about. But presence, you're right. That's the attention piece. That's the focus piece. It's like you're in it. You're not, out thinking about something else, because you're in it for a certain period of time. You'd brought something else up that I've seen a lot of practitioners do, or a lot of therapists do, because on the BlazePod, it has the tap to start feature. And so you can set up your station, go over, work with someone else. And when they're ready, they just tap it and then they can go. There's the monitor so they can see their own score. You can pick cycles. So if they do one, rest for 30 seconds, go again. You can still be over here doing treatment on somebody else, or a different sort of exercise program with somebody else, and then swing back by. So it kind of functions in a way, if you have a big facility like Rogue over there.
Well, and that's what we really focus actually on group exercise classes. And so this is a game changer when you're doing a class that is circuit and you have 10 people in 10 different stations. You really need your equipment to be ready to support you in doing those kinds of exercises. We're not working with people one-on-one nearly as much. And having something like this that really engages people at the station, again, is completely different than using agility dots. So our main focus is group classes, and that's one of the areas kind of in neurologic physical therapy and with fitness professionals that's really growing, because insurance-based physical therapy and occupational therapy is very beneficial, but it's limited. People cannot be in therapy all year round at the frequency that really is shown to create that neuroplasticity. People need to exercise multiple times a week. They need to really keep exercising all year round. And that's not what the therapy kind of insurance-based system supports. And so there's more and more growth of group exercise classes happening across the spectrum, from rock steady boxing with fitness professionals to Parkinson wellness recovery, and different groups that are, developing different methods for the type of exercise that you do. And so more and more, as therapists and fitness professionals are doing exercise classes, something like BlazePods, again, is just really key in having those classes be fun and interesting and really challenging people at a high level. And like you were saying, once people know what they're supposed to do at that station, you don't necessarily have to be with them. You're walking around, monitoring, but it's really wonderful to use in one-on-ones and also in group classes too.
Yeah, and that's what I love about your guys' landing page. Again, it's that www.neurocollaborative.com/BlazePod on there. There's not only activities, there's so many videos that you guys have added to that. If I'm working as a therapist, I may even use that as a take home for my clients. I know you guys have, I don't know if I can say this, but your discount link that you're able to give a really good discount to people who are wanting to purchase BlazePods. And even as if I'm a therapist, I only get to see you maybe once or twice a week. I still want to be able to program. I can drop into your collections on your app so that you can do BlazePod exercises at home and still get 2 or 3 other days apart from me, which I think is really cool. I just got a text from a girl who's in a hurricane in Mississippi, and she's like, how do I do this drill? I wrote her a quick drill, sent it right to her, and she was doing it in her garage during a hurricane. So she was a soccer player, not rehab, but it's like you can utilize these in a way to send homework home and still have them doing that when they can't be with you. So we're gonna wrap up here, but I want you guys to give your marks, give you the name of your businesses, Instagrams, where they can find you, where they can find the website, more information, all that stuff, because we're going to plaster it on the page. So let's start with Erin Gallardo.
Yes, you can find us at NeuroCollaborative on Instagram and Facebook. We also have a great free large Facebook group full of neuro PTs, OTs, assistants, students on Facebook that you can join and just network with others, called NeuroCollaborative Professionals. So you can join that group and follow us on social media. And then the website, yes, get on there, MC. All and right. The website is neurocollaborative.com. And the page, the special page with all our BlazePod activities, which are free and really just organized very well, because we wanted to take the work away from the therapist and make it easy for all of you to just know what to apply and in what situation. And we crowdsourced the ideas from Claire, from Danielle, from people in our community, our neuro OTs, everyone we could. And so anyone who has ideas that you want us to put on the platform, we will put them on there so we can share them with the greater community as well, so we can all really benefit from it. So go to neurocollaborative.com/BlazePod so you can get all of those free activities and download them into your own BlazePod app and share with your colleagues too.
I love that. All right, Danielle, where are you at?
I am at the same locations Erin just listed, but you can also reach me at Danielle@neurocollaborative.com. And I will also add that we will be getting together all in person next month and be creating a lot more videos of activities. So this webpage, we're calling it kind of a launch. It's new. It's got plenty of activities on it so far, but there are more to come. So, if you're checking out the website now at the time this webinar is released, keep watching, because there will be more, and we would love to hear any great ideas that anyone else has that's following us. And you can email me at Danielle@neurocollaborative.com, and I will be happy to collaborate.
Awesome. Claire?
Yeah, same place is the best place to get a hold of us. If anyone wants to email us, info@neurocollaborative.com comes to kind of all of us. And we triage depending on who's the best to respond to that question or communicate. And then if anybody wants to follow Rogue on social media, it's Rogue PT Wellness on Instagram and on Facebook. And we're really more active on Instagram now in terms of posting videos. They kind of, I think, go over to Facebook too, but Facebook there's a little too much going on there now. It's harder to get to what you want to see. So Instagram is kind of a better place where you can go to our page and scroll through and see all different, types of exercises and things. We really do specialize working mostly with people with Parkinson's, but we have lots of fun videos and ideas on there. So you can follow us there as well. But yeah, to get a hold of me directly for any questions, the best place is info@neurocollaborative.com.
So you guys are meeting at Rogue Wellness next month. It's called, I was looking for it. It's called it has a really cool name.
Dendrite Expansion Day. It's the free education day we do for all our NeuroSpark members, so that because most of our education is online. Well, all of it's online. And so we have friends all over the world, and it was like, we should really get together, because neuro nerds like to get together, and we like to chat, and we like to brainstorm, and we like to play with BlazePods and all the other things. So one day a year, we want to get together in person. And since Claire has the perfect spot for us to do that, we're going to all meet with our Sparkies and then have an after party that's free for anyone, any neuro professionals who want to come and have food and demos and drinks and dancing and chatting. So there's also the opportunity, if you're not a Sparky, to come to the after party, the I Love Neuro meetup.
And everybody, MC is crashing that party. I'm going to it all. You can't kick me out. I'm going to bring all the BlazePod toys. We're going to have fun competitions. I've created some really cool drills just to get your brains just flowing. Simon and I have been working on a couple things in the lab that we want to run you guys through. And so it's going to be super fun. So anyone who's interested in neuro, when's the event, the evening event, not for Sparkies, that anyone can attend? It's in Orange County, California, by the way.
Yep, it's October 26th. But if you really, really, really want to come and you're not a Sparky and you want to come for the day of learning, do reach out to us, because we will entertain an idea of potentially having you selling a seat so you can come and learn and get continuing education and stay for the whole day. There might be an opportunity for a few spots for some lucky people who want to just attend for the whole day and come for the after party. So all the food is there and all the fun.
And what time is the after party, Erin?
Oh yeah, the after party will start about 5 o'clock. 5 to 8 is kind of what we've outlined for the after party.
Yeah, and that'll be on a Saturday, October 26th. And Rogue PT and Wellness is in Fountain Valley, California. If you Google us, you'll see our address on Magnolia. But yeah, if you are planning on coming for that after party, definitely let us know, because we got to make sure we have enough food for everybody.
Yes, we have an RSVP form. That's a good point. We need the RSVPs so we can order.
Yes. If you follow our Instagram, you can see the post for that. It's pinned to our profile where you can RSVP.
I love it. It's going to be a great day. I am so thankful for you ladies being on. Thank you for your time. Time is the most valuable thing that we have, and appreciate you guys taking the hour to be with us at BlazePod. We really appreciate the support you've always given us. Claire, since day one, you've been a podhead, we call them, before I was. And so kudos to you, and for introducing Erin and Danielle to them. I absolutely love BlazePod. I love what you guys are about, because you guys are all about bringing great tools and information to professionals to just help collaborate in that neurotherapy sphere. And it's such a labor of love. I think that's so awesome, because anyone who works with that condition, my son just got a horrible concussion playing football. He has no memory of that day. Luckily, he didn't lose function, but it could have been one of those experiences where he may have. And now he's back to square one, relearning this. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you do for our population to make them healthy. And that's it. Let's conclude this webinar.